It's Chef Nicole from Meals Without Madness and the Kitchener Market here to share a recipe with you. It is a delicious beef marinade. We are also going to be talking about cuts of meat, when to marinate, when not to. This is a question I get all the time. One of the first questions that I got many years ago when I was in culinary school is why, when I buy a roast, one weekend it turns out moist and tender and awesome, and the next week it's practically shoe leather. And I asked them, I said, well, what kind of steak are you buying? And the answer that they said to me was, well, the one that's on sale. See, what they didn't realize was that depending on where the roast comes from on the cow, we are going to need a very different cooking method. So I have a poster behind me that's going to help me show you how to know what kind of cuts need marinating, what kind of cuts are best for grilling, and just the best way to get the most out of the different cuts of meat. So let's get started. This lovely poster from Beef Canada. If you don't have a massive poster like this, don't worry. Online at beefcanada.ca, you can find all of the information that is on here, lots of tips, recipes, all of that great stuff as well. The first steak that I have is actually coming from the top sirloin. This, you can see it says top sirloin grilling steak, and up here on my picture it shows a barbecue and an oven. This one is great for grilling or roasting, okay? So it's got a little bit more fat in it. That's going to help it to stay moist and tender. The one over here, we're going to marinate, and that is the outside round. So you can see here, you should use moist heat. You can oven roast. Here is that little marinating sign. So that's letting you know that marinating would be the right option for these cuts. You are going to want to use moist cooking, okay? So thinking about like our pot roast, things that we cook in a liquid covered with a lid, cooking for a longer period of time, so it is time to break down all the connective tissues. But since I do want to grill my steak, then it is going to be marinated first to start to break down some of the connective tissue and some of the things that are making the meat a little bit tougher. But the great thing about some of these meats that maybe aren't as tender from the beginning is they have great flavor. So it's just learning when is the right time to marinate and when not to. So for our steaks that have more fat, more tender, things like that, it's more appropriate to use a rub than a marinade for those because they're already really tender from the beginning. Now that I've shown you guys a little bit more about the different cuts of meat and the best cooking techniques, I'm going to show you guys how to make a really simple, easy marinade with ingredients you probably already have at home. Here I've got some apple cider vinegar, and I'm just going to add in a little bit of that. That acid is going to start to help to break down the connective tissue. I will post the recipe for the marinade below. I also always love adding a little bit of citrus juice. So this is a little bit of lime juice. And to that, I'm also going to add a little bit of hot sauce, literally just a couple drops because I like a little bit of heat. So I'm going to add a few drops of my favorite hot sauce, one of them, sriracha. And then some of that nice one that we never know how to pronounce, the Worcestershire sauce or whatever that is. Everybody says it their own way and they all sound right to me. So we're going to do a couple splashes. Obviously, the quantities are going to be different when we are doing like a family recipe versus just the single steak that I'm doing today. But I will give you a recipe that's made for 4 when it's posted below. I've added about a tablespoon and a bit of my taco seasoning. That's what I've added in there. And then I'm going to add in 2 cloves of garlic. Because I don't need to chop anything else, I am not going to waste time getting out a cutting board. I am just going to use my grater and get it in there. I'm adding a little bit of fresh black pepper. I'm not going to add any salt to this until it actually is ready to go onto the grill. And then I'm going to add probably about a 1/4 cup or so of olive oil and just a little bit of sugar. Just remember when your meat hits the grill that you've added sugar to it, because you might, sugar can burn quickly, so just keep an eye on that. I'm literally adding maybe 2 teaspoons or so of brown sugar. You can see I'm not a big measurer, but I will give you guys the recipe below. All right, so I've got all my ingredients in here. Because I don't have any raw meat in here or anything yet, I am going to go ahead and give it a quick little taste because all the ingredients here are prepared. Oh yeah. That tastes fantastic. That is going to go so good on that steak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it into a Ziploc bag. You can always just put it right in the bowl if you want. I like the Ziploc bag to make sure that we don't accidentally have any drips in the fridge while it's marinating. Just use a spatula and scrape all of that out so you don't miss any of that good stuff. I'm going to take my steak. I'm going to put it into my Ziploc bag and I'm going to squish it around to make sure that it gets a really nice coating of marinade. And let all the air out as much as you can so that you can really get that steak hanging out in the marinade, okay? Put this on a clean plate or into a bowl, pop it in the fridge for a couple of hours, and then it's gonna come out. When you take this out of the marinade, make sure that you pat all of the extra moisture off of it in order to make sure that it's not really wet when it hits the grill. We're gonna season it with some salt and then grill it up. For our grilling steak, I am just gonna be doing a little bit of a rub, and you do actually want to rub it into your meat. So I have my taco seasoning that I mix up and I just stick it in a mason jar, put it in the cupboard. Then whenever I want it, I don't have to make a blend every time. I can just add it right on, okay? So like I said, we're gonna actually get right in there and we are gonna rub that in. We're gonna turn it over. After I wash my hands, of course, I'm gonna do the other side. Thing I'm gonna do right before this goes on to the grill is season it with some salt and pepper. I'm just gonna season this side for now, and then when it goes on the grill, I will add salt and pepper to the other side. Steak has been marinating for about an hour and a half now. So I am just gonna take it out and I am gonna dry it off before I hit the pan. I'm gonna do this in a cast iron pan, but you certainly could grill this. Oh my gosh, that smells so good. Now you're gonna discard your marinade, okay? And then I'm just gonna take a paper towel and I am going to dry this off. Just gonna really press it in there. Get as much moisture off as we can because we wanna get a really nice crust on our steak, and we can't get that if it's too wet. Remember, we haven't seasoned this with salt yet, so we're gonna do that when we get it into the pan. I'll season this side here, and then the other side once I put it into my cast iron. Oh, look at that. Oh, I can smell that seasoning. I have my pan over high heat. You wanna get it almost to the smoking point before you add your steak in. One last tip I wanted to mention is make sure that you take your steak out a little bit ahead of time. You want to get the chill off from the fridge so that you're not like shocking the meat by putting it in a really hot pan. You can hear that great sizzle. I'm also going to go ahead and get my steak in there that we did the rub with. I'm only going to put 2 in. I don't want to overcrowd the pan because I am searing. I don't want it to start boiling. So my steaks are out. I let them rest for about 5 to 7 minutes just to kind of let the juices redistribute. It is cooked beautifully. This is the marinated steak. It is, well, to be honest, guys, I already snuck a bite, okay? It is delicious. The marinade made it nice and tender. It's still juicy. I'm just gonna grab a little piece here and take a bite. So you can see how tender it is. Fantastic flavor. You can taste a little bit of the lime juice. You can taste a hint of the Worcestershire sauce. It is just a really nice piece of meat. Next, on to our steak that we just did the spice rub on. You can see I'm cutting with my knife on the bias. And the reason I want to do this, I want to expose as much of that beautiful pink color in the steak as I can, so that, you know, when we serve this up, people can see that beautiful color, still juicy, nice and pink. This, to me, is like a perfectly cooked steak. So there you have it. 2 beautiful, tender steaks. I gave you some tips and ideas of when to marinate, when to use a rub. I even gave you guys a little tutorial on the different cuts of meat. But truly, what I'm going to say to you guys is, if you want to know the best way to cook your cuts of meat, the absolute best way to be able to get that is to head out to the Kitchener Market, talk to the vendors, let them know what you're looking for, and they are going to be able to make sure that you get the right cut of meat, that you know the right way to cook it, and you are going to have a successful product. So everybody, just remember that the Kitchener Market is open from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays for all your meats, cheeses, fruits, vegetables, and so many other fantastic products. Tons of new vendors are there. So if you haven't been out in the last couple of weeks, you're going to see some new faces and some fantastic new products. And as always, you can also order online, so you can skip the line by going to thekitchenermarket.ca and look at online ordering, and they will make sure that you get the products from the vendors with the same convenience as, well, just grocery pickup. Okay? Don't forget to look at the Kitchener Market calendar for all the upcoming events. I'm Chef Nicole. You can find me on social media at Meals Without Madness on Instagram and Facebook. I look forward to seeing you guys out at the Kitchener Market or online really soon. Have a great night.